But what you're looking for is patterns here. You want to pay attention to carries, touches, targets. You're trying to take your best guess at who's going to be successful at the last half of the season here. Who's going to carry your team? It doesn't matter what happened before. You're looking for patterns now, and those guys are about to break out for the rest of the season.
Mm-hmm. And another thing to add into that is look at shares. Look at target shares, look at snap shares, look at where they're lining up. What's up, Guff? We are back again, back in navy and black. It is Joey Marino and James Reiner here for Grown Up Fantasy Football. Still missing Zach. He still is suffering from that horrid fantasy loss. Any update on his condition?
I have not heard anything. I've been sitting by the phone all day waiting for it to ring. Nothing.
And well, hey, please send your thoughts and prayers out for Zach to get back to the show and recover from that fantasy loss. Hopefully he'll return later on in the week, but we got a pretty good show for you. I think something pretty unique that a lot of people may not be talking about. And today we're going to give you our top 5 tips for the rest of the fantasy season. So top 5 things we think you should be doing going on the rest of the season.
If you want to win a championship, write this down.
Yes, it couldn't be more true. If you want to win a championship, this is almost guaranteed to get you there, to the promised
99.9% success rate.
9 out of 10 doctors, they all say, follow these tips. But without further ado, let's get into the tips.
All right. Number 5, we have spend all of your free agent acquisition budget. You don't get to keep these at the end of the year, guys. Spend it all. Unless you're in some type of league I've never heard of, which roll forwards your points next year, maybe. But spend it all. I mean, if there's a player out there that will make a difference on your team, you got to pick them up. Spend it all now. The season's coming to an end soon. You're not going to be making a lot of speculative ads or waiting and see if a guy's going to blow up. You're playing your players that are going to win you games now, and you want depth on your team towards the end of the season, not really those wait and see guys.
Yeah, this one kind of goes without saying. I mean, like you said, FAAB doesn't roll over, so don't be a chump with any of your FAAB left.
That should have been number 1. Don't be a chump.
Yeah. Well, we haven't got to number 1 yet, so it might be.
Yeah, it might be. You never know.
But we're going to go to number 4, and this one's a little bit different than something you might usually hear, and that is to study film. Now, I'm not saying to go get up there, get the old VCR set and put in game film from 2007 like Bill Belichick over here, but all I'm saying is watch some game highlights. You want to look at red zone possessions for all of your offensive players, and YouTube is probably the best place to check it out. And hey, if you're on YouTube right now, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and maybe those subscriptions will bring Zach back. We never know.
Unofficial sponsorship. If you have NFL Game Pass, you can watch all the games they break them down, condense them. They're 20 minutes or so. You can watch every single game. It will show you only the important stuff. But what you're looking for is patterns here. You want to pay attention to carries, touches, targets. You're trying to take your best guess at who's going to be successful at the last half of the season here. Who's going to carry your team? It doesn't matter what happened before. You're looking for patterns now, and those guys are about to break out for the rest of the season.
Mm-hmm. And another thing to add into that is look at shares. Look at target shares, look at snap shares, look at where they're lining up. Patterns is probably the most efficient way to sum it up. But moving on to number 3, this should be something you've already done, but if you haven't yet, pick up your handcuff running backs.
Absolutely.
Look, 2020 has been the weirdest season ever in the NFL with the pandemic and with all these slew of injuries due to like no off season and no preseason. Everybody's getting hurt. I mean, look at San Francisco's defensive line. It's full of no names that we don't even know. So a few handcuffs that you probably already have if you have these guys. Philip Lindsay, probably already owned. Alexander Madison, Gio Bernard, but some other guys that may not be owned. Tony Pollard is a good one. Latavius Murray, Benny Snell, Jamal Williams, probably already owned, but you want to keep him anyways because that Aaron Jones injury you don't know about. But
Yeah, like I said before, it's all about depth. Yeah, I have James Conner on my team. I have Benny Snell on my bench just in case something happens.
Yep.
I had Kenyon Drake on my team. He is hurt for a few weeks. I should have had the foresight to pick up Chase Edmonds. Don't make the same mistake.
But these are still guaranteed to get you to a championship. So
Yes. All right. Moving on to number 2. This is important. Look ahead now for your quarterbacks and your defensive streamers. Don't wait until the week when they're about to have their favorable matchup. People will already be trying to pick them. You'll have to fight through the waiver wire, or you might have to spend some FAAB to get these guys, and FAAB is rare this late in the season. Pick them up weeks in advance. Look who's playing the Jets in a couple weeks. Pick them up now. Play them then. Who's a good quarterback on the streamers? I don't know. Tua, if he's still out there. If he's has a favorable matchup in a couple weeks, pick him up now. Don't wait until the week. You got to have the foresight to pick up these guys in advance before your other owners in your league make the move to get these guys. You don't want to fight for these guys. You want to have them already ready to go.
absolutely. Some names that you could be looking at quarterback. Tua is one. He didn't have the greatest game, but it was largely due to the defense just performing like crazy. Tua, Kirk Cousins is probably on waivers. Jared Goff, another one coming off a bad week, probably going to be dropped. Drew Lock, another one. Derek Carr. Those are all some guys that are probably on waivers that you could probably spend a little bit of FAAB to get, or maybe burn a little bit of your waiver priority. Some defenses you could look at. Anybody basically playing the Jets, the Giants, probably Dallas, even Chicago, and sorry, James, but Washington.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. No bias here. We are trying to win fantasy championships. Personal
right.
teams cannot come into effect here.
We know our teams are terrible this year, but we're here for you.
Yes.
But the number one tip for the rest of the season, and this should go without saying, go make a trade before the deadline hits. I know the league me and Zach are in, our deadline is, I think, tomorrow, actually.
Wow.
So, yeah, I've got a few trades in the works, but it's always an opportunity to improve your team. You do not want to be left with some garbage player who's been stinking it up, and you could have sold him high when they're just bleeding. They're not bleeding points, but they're not scoring any points in the coming weeks, and you're stuck with them because it's a big name, and you think that they're going to perform. However, the matchup's bad, or they just look bad. Plus, injuries are going to happen, and with players with an injury history, you may want to ship them off.
Not a bad idea. Our trade deadline is Friday, so I'm on the clock too. But put your team in the best position to win a championship. If you have guys you might be kind of low on, have kind of those tougher matchups, look for someone with a favorable matchup, see if you can make a lateral trade. If you have multiple good QBs, multiple good tight ends, try to trade those guys for a position that you need. Buy low on guys that have been quiet so far and might blow up at the end of the season. They're always out there, so try to see those patterns, see who's going to win the league at the end of the season. And then the only other tip is see if you can get any of your handcuff RBs for cheap, for low. If you can get them for a bench player, I would do it. It's all about having depth for your starters at this point.
Yeah, You could probably get, probably a Tony Pollard pretty cheap if you're the Zeke Elliott owner. But those are our tips for the rest of the season. Our top 5 tips, to run through them real quick. That is to, number 5, spend all of your FAAB. Number 4, study film and look for patterns. Number 3, pick up your handcuffs at running back. Number 2, look for quarterback and defense streamers. And number 1, go make a trade before the deadline. Those are our tips that are 99.9% guaranteed to win you a championship. You can't quote us on that, but it's very close to a guarantee, or to a 100% guaranteed.
The math checks out.
It does. James is an accountant. He's already done the math for us. He knows.
Trust me.
Yes. But hey, that's going to do it for today's show. If you haven't already, go like and subscribe. Go grow up and go get guffed.